All right, let's talk about VA loans.
Yep, let's do it.
I get tons of questions about these. A lot of people that are vets and have this option available to them don't even know it, or they know they have the option but have no idea. It's like unknown territory and they don't know how to approach it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think before we even go into that too, is something, make sure that if you're a veteran out there, you really work with a lender and a realtor who have worked with VA loans before. It's a different animal. Everybody will say they do them, but maybe quiz them like, hey, when was the last time you had a VA loan? Like, I closed one last week. And I close multiple times a month. You've worked with veterans that are buyers. So kind of do your homework a little bit, because if they don't know going into it, and this sounds bad, but they can royally screw up your situation.
Oh, yeah. Well, and it's also, there's a lot of preconceived ideas around VA loans. Everybody hears 0% down. That's it. You don't realize you don't have to only put 0% down. And you might not be bringing a down payment, but you still have to pay closing costs. And I mean, closing costs can add up real quick. So you need somebody that understands all of these pieces so you don't get blindsided.
No, let's give it a real, I'm going to piggyback that one with a great example where you get the pre-approval letter for a VA loan from such and such big name lender, and it shows 0 down payment, but you didn't really see any numbers. They just gave you the letter. So you think 0 means 0. Give it to your realtor. Realtor makes an offer, and you need $5,000, $6,000 for closing between closing costs, tax, and insurance. If you don't know how much you need going into it, your realtor can't ask the seller to pay any closing costs if they don't know if you need it or not.
Right.
So you really need to see estimates, understand the numbers, do your homework number-wise so your realtor can make the right offer based on what your situation is.
Right.
So you're right. It is not a 0 down payment does not mean 0 money out of pocket.
Yeah.
It can.
They literally think, I had a client one time that, this is when I very first got my license like 7 years ago. And this is one of the times that I went through some hard knocks. You learn by experience, but I got to learn real up close and personal what a VA loan really means. And they literally thought they were going to show up with nothing but an ID to close on the house. And it's like, no, they had to pay for some stuff, And also the other thing is, even if you have a seller that's going to give them some seller concessions to cover closing costs, there's still things that the buyer has to pay for sometimes that the seller cannot give them a credit for, that they're responsible for.
Well, and even now more than ever, there's actually nothing that the seller truly needs to pay for. That was another misconception, is that, some sellers and some agents think that a VA offer is a negative offer because there's forced costs there for the seller. And that's really not the case. And so not only does your realtor need to be an expert on VA loans and veterans, they need to present that offer, because there's chances that the seller's agent doesn't know.
Yeah, the listing agent might not understand all of these nuances. And you don't want to bring something where you're offering $350,000 on a $350,000 house, and they immediately discredit that offer because they think, well, the seller's going to have to pay some closing costs to make this work, and so it looks unattractive to them. But this isn't like the seller does not have to pay closing costs for the VA loan. The buyer can bring that money themselves.
Correct. I cannot, in the last, 2 years probably, I can't think of one example where a seller had to, and they really don't anymore. They changed the rules.
Yeah.
And I think, so there's a lot of misconceptions. So one is that a VA loan or veteran situation is not as strong of a buyer. That's not true.
No, not at all.
But as a veteran, if you're listening, put yourself in the best position possible. Right? Which is, like in the time of this podcast, the market is crazy.
Yeah.
It's a seller's market. So buyers are having to offer over maybe what the home could appraise for. Well, as a veteran, yes, my down payment may be 0, but I have $20,000 to work with.
Right.
That's going to make you look stronger.
Right.
And
that needs to be communicated to the listing agent.
Correct. Because if your agent doesn't explain that, they're looking at 20 offers, which you talked about earlier, and it's going, okay, I'm looking for every reason not to accept this offer.
Well, and 95% of the buyer's representatives, they're just blindly shooting over, emailing an offer with no explanation. Nothing in the body of the email. There's no bullet point list of, okay, this is what we're offering and this is what can change if we need to. They don't do that. So if you just shoot it over to the listing agent and they see a VA loan, sometimes they immediately get a bad taste in their mouth about it.
I mean, I think we're going off left field here, but I think that's a wonderful topic, which is your agent selling your offer?
Right.
If there's 10 offers on the table and they throw it in line and you're 11th, they may not even get to the 11th offer. So you better look real attractive. Your agent better be selling you on it. You better look strong on paper. Like, give and do everything. It's not what's the least I need to do. It's whatever I need to do to get in the house.
Oh, absolutely. And the other thing is, so when it comes to an appraisal, if the appraisal comes up $5,000 short, just because it's a 0 down loan starting out, that doesn't mean, I mean, now the vet that's a buyer, they can bring that extra $5,000 to the table to make the deal happen.
Correct. That's a misconception too that I hear, which is that the veteran can't. The veteran can, and I've had situations where the veteran has, right? And so be prepared that yes, the goal is the least amount. Depending on where you're listening to this and the market that we're in at the time, you may want to be prepared for anything. So if your realtor tells you, hey, we're going to offer $350, it may only appraise for $340. Be prepared.
Right.
If you have the $10,000, you need to be prepared.
Right.
You can't walk into it going, can I get by with 0? Because if the market's competitive, you're going to lose out. Or you're going to lose when that home doesn't appraise, and now you lost out on that house.
Right. And you still have to put down earnest money too. So that's the other misconception I've had to deal with in the past is they're putting down 0%. So they're like, all right, 0% down. Well, when they go under contract, they still have to put down their earnest money. They might get it back at closing or it gets credited somehow to their closing costs, but they still have to front that money.
Correct. Now, that's an example where you, and I have had this, where the veteran can get the money back, that earnest money, if in the contract the seller is paying so much of your closing costs that earnest money is not used.
Right.
You could get a check back at closing.
Correct.
That's great. Again, that's a market thing to determine.
Right.
So yes, we all want it, but don't go into an offer purposely looking unattractive on paper.
Yeah. And just with all this aside, for a VA loan, the vet home buyer, they still have to qualify their credit score and their debt to income and all of that still has to apply.
Absolutely. And that's
not just like a guaranteed boom, you get to buy a house with 0 down.
Correct. No, that's a wonderful point too. Sometimes veterans will think because they are able to get a VA loan that it's just universally given. That's not the case. The other thing is this: VA loans can be absurdly aggressive, but many lenders will put additional rules or guidelines on top of it. Okay, so in many situations, I've done VA loans where their debt to income ratio was like 70%. Most lenders are going to say the max is 50 or 55 or something like that. And so you want to find somebody who specializes in it that doesn't have those additional rules because they're limiting what you can get as a veteran.
So the qualification parameters are a little bit different than everything else, right?
Extremely different.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I honestly, I do these, but I didn't realize that it was that different.
Yeah. There's a whole different level. So not to bore everybody with the details, but you've got what's called a certificate of eligibility. So you have to make sure that they even have that. You have to have residual income left over afterwards, which is a requirement with other loans don't have that. So there is additional layers that when you go to get pre-approved that you have to meet. And so that's something to keep in mind. I think another thing too is veteran and VA loans, depending on the market, can sometimes have a stigma to them when it comes to sellers, okay? So they think, well, it's gonna take way longer,
right.
Okay? I know for a fact some of the bigger name VA lenders that are credit unions and whatnot can take 45 to 60 days to close a VA loan. If that's true, you're gonna lose out on a lot of your offers.
Absolutely.
Because it's not attractive.
Right.
I close loans in 30 days on a VA loan, and I've closed one in 3 weeks before.
Yep.
So when you are presenting a VA loan as a buyer, as an agent, whatever, you have to sell that offer and show how easy it is for the veteran and how easy it is to get the loan done.
Yeah.
Because there are misconceptions, and we just went over a bunch. There's a ton of misconceptions that they're looking at going, yeah, it's a good loan for the buyer, but my seller thinks it sucks.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and that's why another reason why the listing agent needs to call and vet the lender and touch base and say, hey, you've got a buyer making an offer on one of my listings. Tell me what the situation is. How can you close the deal and all of that? And that makes a difference.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you have to partner with again, just to recap from the beginning, you have to partner with a realtor who has worked with veterans before, knows how to get the offer accepted. You need to work with a lender who specializes in VA loans, not just, yeah, I do them.
Yeah.
Like, they really know what they're doing, or you could put yourself in a bad spot.
I have another question for you when it comes to this. And I had a client that did oh my God. I have a client that did this a few years ago, and she already owned a home in another state, thought she couldn't use her VA loan on the house she was purchasing here, and she could.
Yeah, no, that's actually a beautiful example, which I hadn't even thought of. You can actually qualify for a second VA loan. So there's a misconception, and even many lenders will tell you can't.
Yeah, that you can only use it one time and that's it.
And we've done it. Now, there's a whole additional layer to qualifying for that.
I'm sure.
Which would bore a lot of people, but it is truly an option. So if that is a situation you're in, right away you want to go into, can I qualify? And if the answer is no, as in if it's a blanket answer, then fire your lender and realtor.
Call Dave.
Call us.
Yeah. I mean, just because I had one person, it was a veteran that I met with, and he had a house that he had purchased with a VA loan, and his daughter was living in it and renting it from him, had a couple grandkids. And he was like, I want to buy another house, but I'm going to have to wait till I sell this one, and who knows when that'll be because I'm letting my daughter live there. And I was like, no, you can use a VA loan again. He was able to buy another house with a VA loan again.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's huge. I mean, that's true. It's amazing how many lenders and realtors you talk to who will say, no, you can only have one.
Yeah.
And
I know.
then right away,
so many people answer questions like that and not knowing that there are options.
Right.